Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to get rolling here. And then I tell you what, it's I drove in today. It took me about 7 minutes to get here. How about you?
2.5.
You sure?
18.
18. Yeah. When you walked in today and you're like, yeah, I was in Orlando, Florida, Disney World, my family at 7 yesterday morning, and I'm here.
Yep.
That's
The
awesome.
original plan wasn't to get all the way back to Kansas City. It was to maybe get close.
Yeah.
But we decided to go all the way through. So that
That's-
meant driving
that-
back here today.
That's awesome. So you got passion for what you do.
Yes.
I'd say you have to if you're going to be excited to come all the way back and push through. So that's amazing. So thanks for being here today on the Vetted Podcast. Jason Merckling is with us, sales manager for IDEXX out of Kansas City, and 10, 11 sales reps.
11.
11, yeah. So you got 11 sales reps to make sure they're taking good care of veterinarians. Disclaimer, we're not being sponsored by IDEXX. There's no money exchanging hands. This is just friends talking about the veterinary industry, and things we like about the veterinary industry doing for them is, what do you like, Kale?
Inspiring is definitely a part of it.
I ruined that. Inspiring. Can you inspire me to talk better to you?
I mean, I can try my best, but sometimes you just gotta do it.
Gotta roll with
Yeah,
it.
you just gotta roll with it.
Yeah, and I'd like to, the other part's avocation. I love to see that we advocate for the veterinary community, so the privately owned practices especially, and also that the consumers of that understand what a veterinarian goes through. Like I said earlier, when you see someone go, I spent $600 at the veterinarian, you go, what would that cost if you were at the human doctor? And like, oh, never mind. Like, move the decimal 2 points over. It's $60,000. You see that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So-
And I came from the human side too before coming to IDEXX. I spent 20 years there. So, and then the last 5 on the animal health side. And that is a big difference between the two when you, and this is a cash business as well compared to.
Completely different, right? But same level of training.
Yep.
Actually, the joke is that they're multi-species doctors versus the one species doctors, which is always fun. But hey, Jason, thank you for taking the time, and it really means a lot that you are our first industry partner guest on here, and so we're excited to have you. Real excited.
Yeah, thank you.
So no pressure.
Yeah, sorry.
You always like to tell us about you and how you got into what you're doing. Go back into the 80s, 90s, maybe.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I started out as a undergrad at Emporia State University and got a BS in chemistry. And I mean, my original idea was to be in pre-med, and met my wife when I was in college, and the idea of still being in school for another, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years didn't sound really awesome to me at the time. So I got out and worked as a research chemist. And actually, initially in Lawrence, worked for a lab there in Lawrence, Kansas, and then went to work for Herxman Russell in Kansas City, and worked in R&D. And just while I was there, I quickly started to find out that I loved the idea of connecting and communicating with people. I was used a lot in that setting to sell to prospective clients within the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
They would bring in customers. There's a lot of collaborations that go on within the pharmaceutical space, and they would use me to go in and talk about what our capabilities were. And I quickly started to find out that I loved doing that, and started, getting feedback that, Jason, you do a good job of selling people on what we do. You do a really good job of communicating the details. And we won a lot of business on some of those conversations. And so I started asking questions about what it would take to get into doing business development. And they told me to look into maybe getting a business degree. So I started my MBA.
Yeah.
And so I started getting an MBA, and about midway through that, I started doing interviews and got a job with Pharmacia in Upjohn as a pharmaceutical sales rep.
Okay. And during the MBA.
Yeah, during the MBA.
Okay.
And so I finished the MBA, was in pharmaceutical sales, within a few years got into a management, was a district manager. And then the company I was, and I don't know why I did this, but I decided because, they were going to pay for it, I decided to go back to school again and went to the University of Kansas to get a master's. Actually,
We'll edit that out.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, take that part out.
MUKU, Kale, how many do you allow? Is that okay?
You've got one more.
Yeah, one more. Okay.
You're allowed one more.
Mizzou KU, you know.
So yeah, no, so I went to KU and I took 5 years actually to get the degree because we have 6 kids, and for me to be in school full time with a family like that and knock it out in the 2 years that a lot of people did, it just wasn't going to work. But
so you need to keep a roof over your head.
I got to do that. Yeah, and I wanted
Wife
to
would
be
have
home.
killed you.
She would have totally killed me for that. So it was. Yeah, so I wrapped up that degree, and then I was still in pharmaceutical sales, but then transitioned into the medical device arena on the human side, and really wasn't happy, didn't have a lot of purpose on the human side in the pharmaceutical world, and I thought medical device would give me more of that, and it did.
Good.
I liked the job, but I had a neighbor of mine that our daughters grew up together for 10 years. And they moved away. They moved up to Des Moines, Iowa, and we kind of lost touch a little bit. And a few years later, I got connected with IDEXX over LinkedIn. And the recruiter just asked me if I'd be interested in talking about a management position they had. And I didn't really know anything about this company. I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, animal health, why would they even be thinking of me? And then I saw that I had one connection, and it was Tony.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, it was our old neighbor. So I called Tony. We talked for 2 hours on the phone, and the rest was history.
Tony was with IDEXX?
And still is.
It still is, but at the time you really didn't.
I had no idea.
That's pretty wild. Well, that's cool because you weren't like concerned about what you do. It's like we were just hanging out, daughters doing stuff together.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow. You never know. Well, we have had one mutual connection outside of this space was my roommate, Scott Levin.
Yeah.
It's like, it's cool. You got to have a connection to figure out.
Yeah.
Can I get along with this guy?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if I don't think I could have pulled the trigger on making a change to IDEXX and doing animal health if I didn't know Tony.
Right.
And there were all the things that I didn't like about the human side of medicine and selling in that space were all the things that I loved about IDEXX. And I was like, boy, I really hope this is true. And then after the first year, I was like, I wish I would have figured this out sooner. I love calling on veterinarians. I love the space.
Well, majority of veterinarians, when you ask them, when did you know you want to be a veterinarian? It's like first grade or kindergarten, right? 9 out of 10. And I think it's the same way. It's like I've been joking with people to go, if I was asked, will you be working with veterinarians, during your lifetime? I'm like, well, yeah, I got dogs. Yes, I see them a couple times a year. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully there's no major complications. Yeah, absolutely. But all kidding aside, for the past 10 years, coming from the family-owned grocery business to the veterinary space it's a great group of people to work with. Mm-hmm. It really is. They care, and it's a lot of fun. So we're here with veterinarians now.
Yep.
And so that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What more on your path there that anything else you think that was, if you look back, that you said you wish you would have known earlier, but can't go there, but.
Yeah. I think after being at IDEXX and getting the call on veterinarians and being a part of it, helping pets live longer, healthier lives, what would I change about the path and the experience to this point? One, wishing I found it sooner. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's hard though too, because you go, if you change anything on the path, you may not land where you're at. You may not have the experiences to have, or I'm willing to drive back from Disney World, convince my wife and family that we need to leave Disney World to go back Kansas City, because I need to be on a podcast tomorrow and get back to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think that I would have had the appreciation for the purpose that I have now with what I do at IDEXX if I would not have had the experience that I had on the human health side. The things that we do, the way that we engage with our customers, we're an important part of their business. We're an important part of helping them grow their revenue, their profitability, their diagnostics. And on the human side, just because of how integrated healthcare has become and how controlled it is from the top down.
You mean health insurance?
Yeah, health insurance.
Yeah.
A lot. There really aren't any doctors on the human side that operate privately either. Everybody's owned by a big delivery network or a large health system now, and so they're not making decisions. And it's really, at a very high level, those decisions are being made. And when you're calling on the veterinarian space and these private practices, which is the dominant part of this space,
Right.
it still makes up 70 to 80% of the practices. They own their practice, and so having a business discussion really matters.
Yeah, really matters. And we hear from the veterinarians, the reason they own their own business and the reason they got in the veterinary space is because of that more autonomy to do their thing, and a lot more introverted people too. It's kind of like I do my thing. I want to be able to do my thing. I want to be able to do my thing and not be bothered by its upper management too. They come and tell me what to do because they're not going to stand up for themselves off of management, and so they need good representatives like you that are out there fighting for them. So yeah, so now regional sales manager at IDEXX, what's the job look like? What do you got to do?
That's a great question. On the human side, I could tell you probably weeks in advance what my days would look like, what my weeks would look like. I can sit down at night and think I know what my next day is going to look like in this space, and it almost never looks that way. And part of it is the complexity of what we do at IDEXX and the complexity of the business that our veterinarians are engaged in. And when things come up, they can be very urgent. Oftentimes they are urgent for our customers. And so we need to react to that. Like when I got up this morning, when I got up this morning, the things that I thought I was going to do today versus what I am going to do by the time that 7 or 8 o'clock rolls around, totally different. And also in this area compared to what I did before, my involvement in customer meetings, customer interactions and support and fighting for things that they need or want, and the deal shaping process, agreements that they enter into with IDEXX, creating sources of value for them. There's just so many variables to what we do.
You got something over there?
No, I was agreeing. That seemed, with the amount and the
I've
quantity.
been talking too much. I'm looking at you. You're staring in the back. Me go.
Yeah, I
"Give me a
know, and
chance
I'm
to
the
talk,
one with
Steve."
allergies. Try not to talk.
Oh, I can.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, with the complexity of what you do, I could imagine it would be, almost impossible to almost forecast what it is that someone's going to have a problem with or have a fire with or whatever, and know that you're going to have to deal with that. But I'm sure that's exciting to a point, right? Too are you the kind of person that enjoys that kind of an environment?
I do, because normally all the things that I get presented with over the course of a day are not something where there's a playbook for. And so there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of creativity in coming up with solutions. And what I really love about this job too is I have 11 people on my team, and on any given day, and I can take today as an example, there's only one person on my team at this point I haven't actually talked to today.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk to them after I leave here. So,
Yeah.
But
So you get to interact with all of them.
yeah, and that's the part that I love. I love the interactions with our customers, but I love the interactions with my team too.
Yeah.
And I get that. I get it every day.
IDEXX is diagnostics, but a numbers company, right? I mean, they analyze data, what's going on out there. So, Kales, I'm thinking about what you're saying. Yeah, IDEXX probably knows you're going to have 10 of these events today. They just don't know where they're going to happen at.
Yeah.
You're going to get 10 of these calls. You just don't know where they're going to come from. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, there is a pattern to the different things that we normally deal with, but yeah, it's so random, the things that
Made me think, is there any consistency with someone's newer in business versus in the middle of business versus getting out of business? Do you notice consistencies there with how they approach medicine?
So maybe a newer practice.
Newer
owner
practice,
versus-
yeah, younger, newer, I've been an associate and I now own a business.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we might see where an associate takes over a practice. They just purchased it versus maybe an owner that had been, that same location doing the same thing for 30 or 40 years. And all of a sudden they get thrust into the business decision-making part of that. And I think that piece can be overwhelming for a new associate veterinarian when they maybe all they were focused on before were the clinical aspects of the business.
Yeah.
And maybe thinking about how do I grow year over year now? And how do I provide kind of the latest diagnostics? And also engaging with a company like IDEXX, we're coming out with new things all of the time. So how do I incorporate all of these new changes in clinical diagnostics into my practice?
Right. Right. Is that a big struggle too? Because you can see what results are best medicine, but as the small business owner has to do payroll, hire, run the business and be a veterinarian majority of the time, like where do they have the chance to figure out how am I going to put this process into my day, into my week to be able to provide this level of medicine? I'm at the waterline. How do you get that mindset to shift?
One of the things that I love that our team has gotten really good at over the last few years is engaging with our customers through a business review.
Okay.
And IDEXX has a lot of tools. All of our in-house equipment and our reference lab information, everything is connected.
Yeah.
And IDEXX has a lot of information that we can then take into our customers about their practice, or maybe about the practices in the area where they exist, or the region or the locality where they're at. And what we've gotten really good at is going in and taking that data or taking their information and going in and having a discussion about the diagnostic they're doing, the things that they're doing really well, and maybe there's some areas that they can improve on versus some of the practices that maybe we see in the area where they exist at, or maybe what we see in the Midwest that are taking place.
Yeah.
And I love the way that we've approached that across my team over the last few years, and I think we've made some really positive impacts for customers on the way that they go out and put together, testing and packages for their prospective customers that they work with.
It's a proofs in the data kind of deal, and I like hearing you talk about the Midwest because we're coming off our last episode. We were talking about numbers and the vital signs of the financial data, meaning that just like the vital signs of the animal with pulse, temperature, respiration, it's like cost of goods sold, labor, and net income. And so, you're obviously your expense down here is equipment expense. You could be, but your expense and cost of goods sold. So your big part of that was also like driving that revenue, right? It's like how do we drive that revenue? And I think that when people look at numbers, especially here in the Midwest, it's so many of the benchmarks that are out there. Like it's including New York City and San Francisco, and it's all these things, lump it all together to be like, well, you should charge this for this diagnostics out of this big national report. But really, it's more of know what is in the Midwest, what's realistic, what can you charge, and I think that helps out a ton because we are different out here.
Yeah, the Midwest is, and one of the areas when I came to IDEXX 5 years ago that I thought was really different here versus on the coasts was the adoption of wellness testing and preventive care. And the first year I was here, I saw this big emphasis across IDEXX to have these discussions, and that was a big growth opportunity for our customers as well. We tried it for several months, and we had some initial uptake, but then we really kind of hit a plateau. And I wanted to understand what happened. Like, why weren't we able to kind of push through that plateau and have more success there? And it was really driven by the fact that the places where we had success were customers or practices where they were already maybe adopting a lot of the ideas of what a good wellness panel.
They're coachable.
Yeah. Coachable. I think open to the idea of recommending that type of testing. And then what we found in the other practices, because they were maybe offering more of a basic level of testing, and they maybe weren't on board with some of the more advanced components of wellness and advanced care, or wellness testing and preventive care, it was a heavier lift. And there were things around going beyond just doing a heartworm test, or just doing a fecal in-house test, or doing a UA in-house, or doing maybe a basic chemistry, but not a CBC accompanying it. There were things that we needed to do to kind of prepare, the groundwork or the foundation before we could get to that point. And we're there now.
That's good. I think you probably have some experience in people and their pricing the veterinarian, what they think about pricing, and then what the customer reception is going to be.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always think there's a general fear around, having a higher bill. I think the where you can really excel at that, though, is having a good conversation about why we're going to have these things and why we're going to do those. And I think we talked about that on our call a little bit about communicating the value to the client.
Yeah, that's a really a big part of a clinic getting adoption with preventive care and wellness testing is it's got to be driven through the practice. And it starts with the receptionist, and then it goes from the technician that's taking the customer and the patient back to the room, and then the veterinarian. And the whole practice is able to communicate that message and then kind of give the why.
Yeah.
To the customer about why we're doing it, that during the visit, the veterinarian can look at the outside of the pet, but giving that pet a voice through diagnostics. And the testing and the chemistry and the CBC and all the other testing we do is looking at the inside. And IDEXX has a lot of resources and materials where we can help our customers have that discussion. We can help train their staff on how to have that discussion.
Beyond the vital signs.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Is that any good? Beyond
the vital signs? I mean, we can keep it if you want to. Yeah.
So hey, Jason. So you speak.
Whoa. You just gonna cut in now? Lindo, hey, did we tell you you're on the show today?
You see, Jason, you need someone else at your job. I'm looking for a job.
Hey, you keep shaking that camera too. By the way.
Yeah, don't you got to be careful about that.
Stand against. Get out of your swivelly chair and stand against the wall.
Yeah, no, Jason. So you speak a lot about growth, when it comes to IDEXX. So one question that I have, because I'm a big technology guy. Technology is a rapidly advancing in the field of veterinary diagnosis. How does IDEXX stay at the forefront of the technological innovation, and how do these advertisements benefit veterinarians or pet owners?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I feel like this is an area that IDEXX really excels in our space. And it's something we love talking about with our customers that we're proud of, that IDEXX spends more money on R&D combined. If you combine all of our competitors, we lap the field on the amount of money that goes into R&D. And
that's a big deal.
Yeah. And then that's why, I came from human medicine, and we would wait 7-8 years for a new product to come out, and you can wait a few days or a couple of weeks at IDEXX for something new to happen. It's mind-blowing, and it's almost hard sometimes to keep up.
Yeah.
And IDEXX puts a lot of money into R&D, but we keep developing and building our products. And one of the things we like to tell our customers is when you're buying equipment, your in-house equipment from IDEXX, it's a platform. Mm-hmm. You're not buying an analyzer, we put the box in there, and then you got that, and nothing else happens or changes with that over the next 10 years. IDEXX's belief is you're buying a platform, and we upgrade that platform over time. So somebody that bought our chemistry analyzer 10 years ago versus somebody that buys it today gets the same technology, the same improvements, the same enhancements. And I
that's
think
huge.
Cool.
Yeah. So they don't build in obsolescence.
That's right.
Right. Like when some of these things are you cannot upgrade to that new platform anymore.
That's right. Yeah. Planned obsolescence is not part of our strategy.
I think an important point about IDEXX too that I've seen, especially out of Jason, we have a relationship, and you do a really good job. So it's probably a big part of what you do, but support at the end of the day, you can have the best equipment in the world, but if the support's not there, then
so again, I keep making that comparison with the human side of medicine compared to animal health, and you would think that on the human side, with I think the really large revenue and backing and support and resources that you would have there, it's one of the things that I love about where I'm at IDEXX is there is a stark contrast in what we do on how we support our customers compared to what I knew from where I came from. We have a professional services veterinarian that only supports my team. She's she's a veterinarian that owned her own practice, and now has come to IDEXX, and she goes out and she knows IDEXX testing and equipment inside and out, and she can go out and handle from a medical and clinical perspective at the level of our veterinarians their questions. We have a field support team that, to me, at the core of what we do at IDEXX, that group is so important to our customers and to the way that we engage with them that makes us different. Our field support representatives are people that our customers, technicians, and practice managers know. They're there when we install the equipment or when they first come on board with us and do reference lab testing. They offer training. They can go in and do training after the fact as well. If they need help with like sample preparation, they can go in and help do educational presentations as well with salespeople off of my team. They're just such an important part of the offering that IDEXX has that really makes us different. And then there's more beyond them. Like we could keep talking. We have an internal medicine line too that they can call into and get support from veterinarians.
It just makes you think about the support for the independent veterinarian. You mentioned, they're 70-some% of the practices out there are privately owned, yet that's not the same correlation on sales, right? Corporate has a majority of sales with less locations because of where they're located at. But IDEXX it seems like making an investment in the private practices.
Yeah.
What's their stand? Why?
Yeah. So
I'm glad.
Yeah. They still, when you look at the marketplace where we're at in the Midwest, it's still representing, private practices are 75 to 80%. They may look, I don't know what those numbers look like. I know what my data looks like in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for the products and the innovation that IDEXX has because it really benefits a private practice veterinarian in a number of ways because they may be shorter staffed compared to maybe a larger corporate account. Well, we have in-house diagnostics that can make them more efficient. We can replace the fecal testing that they're running in-house where they can send it off to the reference lab, free up that tech time, and get 5 times greater detection through the fecal antigen test. And then also with our SediVue, instead of running manual UAs in-house, they can run it on an analyzer in 3 minutes with just 3 to 5 drops of urine. And our view on that is fresh is best with urine. You don't want to send it out if you don't have to the reference lab. And so for an individual veterinarian that's shorter staffed, and in some cases we see individual veterinarians that maybe are running the analyzers by themselves, time is money there. And if you don't have to run the fecal, you don't have to run the UA, and instead you can see more patients and churn more rooms, that's better for your revenue and your profitability in your practice. And IDEXX really helps support those veterinarians in that way. Plus, another really cool thing that we have is if you're a single vet practice or a private practice, even if it's 2 or 3 or 4 veterinarians, we have an internal medicine consult line. So maybe you need another opinion and you're not in this large practice with all these resources. IDEXX offers that.
That's great.
And they can just make a phone call and talk with another veterinarian or an internal medicine veterinarian, which those are not easy to find in the state of Oklahoma. There's like one practicing internal medicine veterinarian. IDEXX has a phone call away for that individual vet where they can get that support.
I think what it comes down to, everybody wants good support. That's the number one thing at any company anywhere is having good support. And I think it sounds like you guys nail that and provide that to people when they need it the most. So that's good.
It's as I go through thinking about, we like to ask when we have veterinarians in, they're private practice owners, and we like to ask them, would you recommend for a veterinarian to own their own practice? I want to ask you the same question, and why? Would you recommend your why one way or the other?
I absolutely would. It's kind of funny because now learning the space over the last 5 years, and I go in and I see really successful practices, and I see some of the real basic fundamentals that they're doing. I don't think at the end of the day, foundationally, the recipe is not complicated. And when I see that, I say, oh, wow, if I was a veterinarian and I had a vet license and I see
you wanted to be a doctor. Yeah. So when you look back and go, maybe I could have been a veterinarian. Yeah. I'm sorry, don't get off topic, but yeah.
It excites me. Yeah, I see all of these practices out there every day, and there's all of them are really minor tweaks and foundational changes away and a very simple recipe from being wildly successful.
Yeah, and that's what we see too. Just it's well, part of the tough thing is, of course, as you know, in the past 3-4 years through COVID, COVID threw a whole change to the industry, and now we're seeing a little bit of stepping back because people are like going back to work. Heck, you're seeing the shelters fill back up because people are the dogs they got from or cats they got from shelters are back there again, which is a whole nother topic. But I've seen too, it's like coming off of that as strategists here, probably in IDEXX, how did your mind shift? Like when COVID happened, you probably went to some emergency support for these clinics, right? They're gonna make, you're gonna be okay. But have you also had to reset your mind to go back? Okay, we're not in COVID anymore. Like, was there a transition between those two periods for you?
There was, and I think going back to something we talked about earlier about veterinarians, and they probably knew since they were kids that that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And there were some things that happened during the pandemic that I think were hard to shift back into what maybe a normal pattern was from pre-pandemic. And one of those was not having to deal with people.
Yeah.
There was this the thing that was going on where people were pulling into the parking lot and they weren't coming in. They were giving their pet. The pet would be brought in. They would give the care, and they would do a lot of remote billing and so forth, and then give the pet back. A lot of the veterinarians kind of liked that.
They're introverts.
They kind of liked that, and it was hard to give that back.
Yeah.
It was hard to make that change, and we saw that with a lot of practices. Some practices have still held on to that offering. With the curbside. Yeah.
You see much of it?
We still do. Yeah. I mean, we still have practices out that they'll do it in a hybrid. It is actually uncommon to see a practice where that's the only thing they do is only do curbside at this point. But we will see a little bit of a hybrid of that model still, where they will allow you to do it if you want.
Yeah, we're not talking curbside hardly at all.
We haven't been talking about it at all. Hardly. No.
I think they'll still accommodate it for certain. It's more of like, I don't know that you have necessarily the outside signs too much anymore. Like, what spot are you in? I think it's more like certain customers that want that service. That's pretty wild. What how many practices are you over with 11?
1,400.
1,400.
Yep.
What's some wild things you've seen? Like innovative from the private practice standpoint that's really working?
Drive-through.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's mind blowing when I can think of practices right now, and I didn't know how maybe customers would react to it or how excited they would be about it, but in the places where we've seen it implemented, it's been in some cases wildly successful.
Okay, there's multiple ways to do drive-through, right? It's like a quickly come in, shut the doors down, right? The car's in there. Like, how are they doing those drive-throughs?
I don't totally understand all of the logistics of how they're making it happen.
So you mean when you're doing the IDEXX side, you're not going out there and going,
like what is that workflow and the efficiency? We've seen pieces of it because we've had to help them because they're doing diagnostics as they're coming through the drive-through situation, and they'll bring the blood work back in. And I know in one of the cases we had to help them with the fecal testing, come up with some different ways to handle the volume of fecals that were coming in from their drive-through. We had to get them a printer for the labels, and because it was just
there's a lot of puns underlying that.
Yeah, there really are.
He was really on a roll, and you threw him off.
I had to. I couldn't leave that one hanging. Come on, we got to laugh, or you can.
That was the one thing I never thought I mean, you come to animal health, how much I say the word fecal, and we're talking about poop. And it was an adjustment.
Yeah. No shit.
That's right. Pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so you're dealing with a lot of fecal coming through the drive-through. Like, how do you handle that coming through? So that's a whole new.
So we came up with a plan for that customer in that situation, and then just having when you have that drive-through model, being able to do blood work, particularly if you have a sick pet, and being able to have your in-house equipment handy for that. We have one where they actually took over. I think It was like it kind of looked like a Jiffy Lube almost. I know it wasn't a Jiffy Lube, but it was
Right.
they had the garage that you drove into and then you drove out the other side.
Yeah.
And so they had the in-house equipment. We're actually in the process of setting up a whole nother suite of equipment in there. That way they don't have to bring the blood work into the main part of the clinic.
Temperature affect anything though? Temperature change?
It's actually a heated garage. So,
Yeah.
but the doors, open in the wintertime.
Humidity,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. That's a tough environment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I haven't heard anything feedback-wise about any issues with equipment and
Yeah.
temperature sensitivity. I think one of the areas where we maybe have some concerns with that, and it's something that's starting to emerge, an innovation that we're seeing in the space, and it's not like mobile veterinarians.
Right.
That's not new, but we're starting to see more of them popping up.
Yeah. So what do you? Yeah, that's interesting. Mobile veterinarian, the machine bouncing around the back of a van or shuttle bus or.
Yeah, we actually, we're fortunate. We have a field support manager that used to be a representative in Texas, but she now supports our team. Her field support team is in our market here in the Midwest. And she was part of a national group at IDEXX that put together the best practices and strategies for mobile veterinarians on how we install the equipment and how they do diagnostics in a mobile setting. And so whenever we've had mobile situations where we've done new practice setups and installs, she's always been a part of them, which has been fantastic to have.
It's interesting. Yeah, because I think about like scales, or even like, they got to be able to weigh the animal. Those things are sensitive.
Yeah.
I guess with an animal, I mean, it does matter. Weight matters
Yeah.
when you're thinking about diagnosing and prescribing. It's like, I guess maybe a pound or two may not matter as much, but if you're a pound or two at 10 pounds versus 100 pounds, that matters. That's a whole new ball of wax. Not to go down that road, but man, you just made me think about like.
Yeah. I don't. So I've been in some of the mobile units where we've installed the equipment, and I'm surprised when I see it from the outside that once you get in it, how much space there is and
Yeah.
what their capabilities are. Like the most recent one that I saw in Tulsa, there was a surgery suite table in the back. They had a full suite of IDEXX equipment. They had an X-ray system in there. Like literally
That's awesome.
could do all the things that you could do inside of a traditional clinic space.
Well, I'd say you must be making your equipment right, because if it can, handle the driving around, still give accurate results and all those things, that's wonderful, because there's a lot of people that want to do business that way, and to be able to allow them to do that, that's cool.
Yeah, and I believe that they're popping up because there's a demand for that in-person service. And I think COVID maybe brought about some of that demand,
Right.
that more customers are wanting that type of a service.
Yeah. Well, and it's I guess they don't say a cheaper startup, but it kind of is, right? Than having to go rent a space, build a space, whatever. It might be a way to get into business too, to go
Yeah.
and then build your shingle later. You seen someone do that?
So the big kind of jump in seeing mobile veterinarians has just happened in the last probably 12 to 18 months. So it would be an interesting point. Do they transition from that into a brick and mortar space?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the ones that we have right now. A lot of them actually are doing both.
Okay.
They have a brick and mortar, and we have another one that's a brick and mortar, and it's actually one of the drive-through ones I just pointed out. And they want to expand and start offering mobile as well. So
Anyone got a mutt cuts?
what's that?
Mutt cuts?
Oh, like a grooming?
No, it was in Dumb and Dumber, didn't they? Mutt was it? That was
I don't-
you seen it, right? We need to throw that one up there, Linda. Have you seen the Dumb and Dumber? Is like mutt cuts, or what do they call that? Have you seen Dumb and Dumber? Oh yeah, they've got this whole they're grooming, and the van has like it's all got like fur on the outside. It looks like a dog. And it's got flopping ears. It's hilarious. There he is.
So I have a question. I like statistics and whatnot. Are there any statistics that you guys have?
Dumb and Dumber.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
I
these
thought
guys-
we might have been dealing with a young crowd.
I'm not a.
Yeah, but I mean that's like classic. There's memes out today on that. Like I mean you've seen
I'm not
the
a movie
memes
guy
on
though.
it. Like
I don't watch a lot of movies.
seen the guy where it's like he pulls up in the scooter and it's like, Lloyd, when I thought you couldn't go and do anything dumber, you come and redeem yourself. You haven't seen that meme? Okay,
Maybe.
All right, fine.
I don't think so.
I'm out.
But anyway, no, I like statistics and stuff like that. I think they're interesting. Is there anything that you
Just
have
not
that you can
movies.
share? Not movies, not movies though. Is there anything that you can share that you're Trying to do a good job here,
numbers.
Steven.
Glad I hired you for that. Sorry, I'm all loopy on Monday.
Oh God!
What'd you put in my
Excuse
tea?
him. Thank you for driving.
What did you put? What'd you put in my tea?
I gave you the tea you requested.
Just jasmine. All right.
But no, seriously, is there any statistics or things that you can share that you're proud of?
Like industry statistics or
Anything like that. I know lab services are a large portion of folks' expenses and their cost of goods sold and things like that. I didn't know if there's anything statistics wise when X happens, this happens that you guys are proud of.
I think preventive care is one, and it's just kind of front of mind for me right now because it's something that my team is going to begin focusing a lot more on. And when we see, and this is actually IDEXX numbers and data too, that when we see a customer fully engage with preventive care and wellness testing a year later, we see 20% growth in diagnostics, and not just diagnostics like chemistry and CBC, but there's a lot of downstream ethical clinical revenue and testing that occurs when you do preventive care.
Ethical revenue, meaning we're not just selling stuff.
That's right.
It's for the benefit of the animal.
That's right. Like the data that we see, whether it's a senior or a younger pet, 25% of the time there's a clinical finding that will come out of doing preventive care and doing wellness testing. And when the idea is to help pets live longer and then having those types of clinical findings, to me, that's how we think of ethical revenue and clinical findings that help that pet. And then for the customer, where maybe they were just doing a heartworm or maybe an in-house fecal before, this expanded, more robust wellness testing is one, it's also creating a signature for that pet when they're younger of what their blood work looks like. That way we know when something is different as they age, that and you see that deviation in the blood work.
Yeah. We need that, and when we talk about statistics with DVM Office that, Kale runs, a lot of times we're starting off with data that's like their old books. Like I can't really reference off that.
Yeah.
I kind of guess what your sales, you can see what your sales were, but that's why we got to get this good reference point that's accurate to start from. So 5-6 years down the road, you can go, something's not running right.
Yep.
And you can see in your numbers quick. So same kind of things. It's like what's the vital signs for IDEXX? Like what is that? What are the key things with preventative care and those things?
Yeah. Preventive care is something that I pay a lot of attention to. And then also just within my region, I'll look at data on, we have a test called SNAP 40X Plus, and it actually gives you 6 values around vector-borne disease and heartworm. And I always like to monitor that for like pockets of increased rates of one of those test values. Like Ehrlichia is really big here in the Midwest. And we see anywhere from 10 to 15% positivity rates in the Midwest for Ehrlichia positive pets.
Okay.
But in other parts of the country, that might be 1 or 2%.
Okay.
Or in the Northeast, Lyme, or maybe the upper Midwest, you'll see Lyme disease off of that test because Lyme is one of those 6 values. But here in the Midwest, that's not one that shows up with that level of frequency. And so I like to kind of monitor where we're maybe seeing pockets of that. That way we can kind of take that information back to our customers.
Yeah.
So that's data I'd like paying attention to.
Okay. I think about if you do good preventive care, obviously animal lives longer. Are there any statistics on that it's actually, more affordable for you as a pet owner to take better care of your animal versus having a big event or catching that earlier? Is there kind of statistics around that spend a little more today and save a little more later? I might be completely wrong on that. That might be. But.
I know that data exists, and I wish I could quote the exact to you, but I know that we have something like that, and we're catching kidney disease early. There's a lot of different things that you can catch early by doing diagnostic testing on an annual basis that will save you from having higher expenses down the road. There's definitely no doubt about that.
Well, Winnie, my little Labradoodle, she had her dental a week or two ago, but the time she was scheduled, she went in and her liver, they did blood work beforehand, which is important, and her liver enzymes are off. Well, she had been on a steroid before, and they go, it's probably the steroid, but we're not going to do dental today. And came back 3 weeks later after she'd gone through her medicine, and everything was normal, and then a week later came in and had dental. So that's a huge deal. Because a lot of you're saying preventative, that's preventative too, right?
Yeah, pre-anesthetic blood work.
Yeah.
Yep. And another reason that you do pre-anesthetic blood work is there could be some issues by going under anesthesia that could cause a fatality with a pet.
Yeah.
And pre-anesthetic blood work is not a big cost, but it's, again, something that we don't see a lot of. Well, we see a decent portion of practices do, but it's sometimes an area or an opportunity for growth.
Again, Kale, I think you agree with me on this. What we see, it's one of our things we coach on is that you can't ever. The veterinarian assumes that person can afford that, or would tell them no. Instead of just saying, "Hey, this is the best medicine." I imagine that's what coaching is there too with IDEXX. That this is best medicine.
Yep.
Recommend it. Let them tell you no. Don't assume.
That's right. And when we go in and talk preventive care, that's something that we like to discuss as well, is making a recommendation.
Yeah.
And even presenting maybe a couple of options. One of the best practices we've seen is presenting preventive care as maybe an essential or comprehensive panel. And I do think that when we go in and we talk preventive care and maybe we onboard a new customer, and we have a number of examples where we see this happen, and I think they have the bar pretty low in their minds at the beginning. They don't think they're going to get a lot of yeses.
Yeah.
Particularly if we're maybe looking at a clinic that's in a rural setting. They just don't think people are going to be willing to pay for that, or they would be okay with it. And we have example after example where we go in and we do the training. We want to do the training with the whole office. This is not training for.
You said that it's not just that everyone's got to say the same thing.
Yep.
And understand why.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got to be on board. And we had a really good example last summer where we had a customer that came on board. Actually, it was 2 summers ago. It was one of my favorite, though, and I always think of it when I think of a rural location, an hour outside of Kansas City, where gravel road, farm roads are crossing each other.
Yeah.
And I remember the follow-up meeting when we went back in there, and you could see the veterinarian and the owner were just stunned that they were getting like almost a 90% clip yes rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Don't assume.
Yep.
Don't assume. And if you really want to do best medicine, you gotta ask. And
make the recommendation. You're the expert.
We'd like to say, if I'm the veterinarian, you're the client, and say, hey, I need you to help me with something. I need to recommend best medicine here. Yeah. And so what I need to recommend is these things. Help me understand, is that something you want to do? And really put it on the person to make that decision.
Yep.
And then you've done your job. And you get 90% agree.
Yeah. And a lot of that's getting teed up for the veterinarian. And I know in the example I was just giving, the veterinarian was saying that she hardly even had to do anything when she went into the room because everything was just set up and explained so well by the technician and by the receptionist. And she was going in and the yes was basically already there.
Yeah.
And I think you could tell, was just surprised by this development, which was great.
Yeah.
Like, we did our jobs. We helped this practice in an ethical fashion grow their revenue, and we're helping those pets in that practice live longer. And this would have not been happening before.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been happening a month before that.
All right. So we're talking about preventive care. Tell me about geriatric care. What's changing there? Are you seeing change in geriatric care?
I feel like just the robustness of the testing and the panels that can be done now is pretty impressive. Like, the biggest chemistry panel IDEXX has, we have like a chemistry 27. We call it Chem 27. There's 27 values in that. Okay. There's a CBC, so the complete blood count that's being done along with that. We do the fecal antigen testing in the senior pets, but we do the visual of it. Then we also do the antigen testing where we're looking for 5 things chemically in there to identify those. And then also we will look for coccidia and giardia. And we also include our 40X test with that. So there's 6 tick-borne disease values that come with that. And so for a geriatric pet, when you think of the way that IDEXX defines preventive care and the breadth of testing and values that come with that, and now even cost on being able to screen high-risk pets for cancer has now come down. I know just even a couple years ago, you were looking at paying list price with IDEXX somewhere in the $300 range. And now there's a really good test that's accomplishing the same things, if not more, with the same level of accuracy for about $60.
So can I get my human blood tested over there and take the results to the doctor? Because instead of paying the doctor at the human medicine 30 grand for that test or 3 grand for that test.
I know. It was pretty wild because.
That bad?
Yeah.
It might not be great.
It probably wouldn't work.
You're probably not going to like it.
Dang it.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of funny because coming out of human medicine and then into animal health, the idea that you can get in-house diagnostics, like I go and get my blood work done and I have to go look in a portal a few days later to see what the results were.
Right.
And in animal health, you walk into a clinic that has in-house equipment and you're getting it in like 8 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Our dogs are going to they get better care, better prices than we do. It's like, maybe we should look at their model.
Yeah. I know. It's pretty wild.
I think it lends a little bit though to the efficiency of a smaller organization though too. Like if you think human healthcare, it's giant, right? And a lot of these practices, whether they own multiple or they own one or whatever, it's quite a bit more efficient to make those decisions than it would be in that larger setting.
Yeah, the GP in the veterinary medicine versus GP in human medicine, they're also like, this GP that owns their own practice can make decisions.
Yep.
That GP over here, they're like, I can do these 5 things.
Yep.
I know I could probably do 10, but yeah, it's exciting private practice ownership. See what they get to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it keeps getting better. I mean, we're coming out with we already announced the new analyzer for in-house testing. And I had no idea how many like ear testing is being done in-house manually by veterinarians, and then also blood morphology, and then we're going to do something else called fine needle aspirate that's going to come up, after it launches in January of 2025. But just getting to talk with customers and then them seeing this at some of the exhibits and big conventions that are going on across the country, it's a pretty cool thing to be able to offer. That again, for an individual vet that has to spend time preparing a slide to do that ear test and then visually observe it, they're now going to be able to do it with just putting a few drops on a test, not even a slide, put it into an analyzer and get results in a few minutes.
That's awesome.
And
how much AI is going on?
so, excellent question on that stuff is it's going to use AI for the blood morphology. And then also our SediVue, our urine analysis, is using AI as well. And it only gets better because all of these analyzers are connected via the internet when we install them. And so all of this data just goes into a national bank. And so the neural network that's being used, the brains, the AI, gets better and better. Like our SediVue came out right before I got here. So it's probably been out about 6 years. And I think we're up to about 1 billion data points that are being used now to build that AI.
That's not that big. That's not a very big machine, right?
It's a cube, a foot, like a 1 foot cube.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool to see. It's fun to walk into our clients and see just what's. I mean, that's the thing too about avocation with the gap, I think, of understanding with the consumer is what is going on behind that.
Yeah.
They see most exam rooms, you got the client entrance and then the doctor entrance coming in, and they just don't see what's happening behind the scenes. Not to say they need to, but
no,
it's a hospital.
Yeah,
it's not I said clinic. I shouldn't say it's a hospital.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you're going in there and getting all the same types of services that you would. Yeah,
that's an interesting question. I'd be curious. We could look at our clients. We got hospital and clinics, right? Be curious what the statistics are between those numbers and if there's any effect on calling yourself a hospital versus a clinic. I mean, and I don't know if anyone has those statistics. There's got to be, right?
Yeah, you could probably query that.
There's got to be. I mean, we can definitely know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know if it would really. A lot of places you go to the vet because that's a close one or that's where your friend goes.
Yeah, but
not
you got
so much
subliminally in your head. A clinic and a hospital are different.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe not the the generation that doesn't know Dumb and Dumber, but the generation that does, it might mean something a little different.
Maybe
because we had clinics when we were younger.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you have. Like you did have your GP in your town still a lot, where you'd go to just that GP at that one spot and they actually owned their practice. I mean, when in the 80s, I was going to in Eldon, Missouri, a dude in his clinic.
I grew up doing that.
Dr. Beeler. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
so you know what I'm talking about.
I went to a clinic.
Yeah, but he owned it. She
I
owned
think
it.
they owned it.
Yeah, it's Dr. Beeler. That's pretty wild. Well, I tell you what, this has been a ton of fun. We could continue to go on and on and on and talk about exciting things, but what did we not ask you? What would you like to, as we're talking about, it's education, inspiration, advocation here, and viewpoints, like different viewpoints. Everybody's got to hear different viewpoints because there's other. This isn't about who's best in the diagnostics world. This is about, maybe it is for you. It probably is for you. But for us, it's more about, hey, we see you in our area doing a great job. So you do have great equipment. I do believe in that. And you've got really good support under your team. You're doing a really good job. We appreciate that because that means a lot to the clients we serve. And so as we look at that viewpoint, what's something you're like, man, I really wish they would have asked me this question?
Yeah.
Not.
Gosh, and let me think about that.
Yeah, put you on the spot.
We can edit out a group of time too.
Yeah.
Or a segment.
So as you say, Steve, we're here to inspire and educate. So like for someone out there looking at you and like be like, I want to be in your position or anything like that, how do you manage the demands of like your role at IDEXX, and how do you ensure that you have time for family as well, and besides work, how do you balance that?
That's a great question.
That's a question that we need. We don't let him over here because if he was over here, I wouldn't have a job anymore.
Yeah. So I graduated from my undergrad in '97. I've been working since that time period, and I've not ever been part of a company where my days go by as fast as they do with IDEXX. And I love the job. Love what I do. I enjoy the customers we get to call on, the purpose of what we're doing as well, the business aspects of it. There's just so many pieces. And I know what happens a lot is I sit down at my desk at 7 a.m. because we're an East Coast company based out of Maine. And so a lot of my peers that I'm going to interact with are already doing it.
Yeah.
That's 8 o'clock for them. And then we have people on the West Coast that are part of my region or area that I'm in. It can get to 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening pretty quick. And I think the neat thing for me about this job is my wife and my kids, they see how much fun I have with it and how happy I am with it.
Yeah.
And I do need to be better about finding that time once I get to the evening of having a little bit of a clearer point where I, get things shut down. But I do find a lot of joy in what I do. I find a lot of joy in the customers that we work with. And it's also kind of cool when you get to tell your little kids that I'm petting cats and dogs.
Yeah. That's a real job.
Yeah.
Dad,
Like,
you
really?
sure? I see you on the phone and you're playing with animals.
Yeah. I know. I'm sending pictures all the time, like
Yeah.
baby goats and deer and, on a llama farm and whatever.
Isn't that cool when the people send you the pictures? Like,
Yeah.
look what I got to check out today and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just one more last question from me before I get fired. So what legacy do you plan or hope on leaving behind at IDEXX, especially with the role that you have?
With my team, something that I'm really proud of is the culture that we have built. And I have seen us get a lot of recognition for that at IDEXX. And I think the way that we treat people both inside and outside of IDEXX, whether it's our customers out in the field and vet clinics and how we support them, or it's how we operate internally in a very complex environment with lots of moving parts and many variables, and always being very respectful of people, being collaborative, and being really good with our communication. And just having purpose and caring about the job that we do every day. And I feel like if people and the recognition we're getting for that rubs off on other teams or other parts of the culture within IDEXX, I would be proud of that. IDEXX is already that company though. And when I got here, I was so impressed by how much people have passion and love and care about what they do every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's rare to hear in a big company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should say rare. It's not rare. I say those companies don't get the attention.
Yep.
You kind of put everyone in a basket of that doesn't happen in big companies, but it does. It does. You just don't hear about it. So glad to have you on today to talk about that and the purpose. We're focusing on purpose around here with our clients because that's the fuel. Understanding what that is, the fuel usually excites you to do what you do and provide that great care. And the human-animal bond connection is a big deal. With mental health the way things are today, an animal can be the difference in a down day and bringing you out of that down day to go.
Yeah.
Coming through that door and that wagging its tail.
Yep. That's what makes me happy. And everybody's has their pet stories and I think that's what connects me to the job too. And as a family, we lost our family dog about end of September last year.
Yeah.
And I think it reminds you of the things that we do every day with the diagnostics and catching and detecting those things and extending the life of our pets. And when you have that type of connection yourself personally, it really,
It's tough.
Yeah,
I remember that. And yes, it never go. You have that feeling still. They're family. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Jason, again, thank you. What a great story to hear from you and learn more and grow our relationship. And you talked about the culture and the caring you've given for Pro Partners, supporting us in our events too.
Yep.
Those things and all that we appreciate it, and we look forward to continue to grow from there. So, this is going to be the end of episode number 7 here, the Vetted Podcast. A lot of fun. If you like what's going on, please hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening on one of the podcast channels, the 15 of them, the main ones, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, and a bunch more, subscribe to us there. And this is not just for the veterinary community. Yes, but it's really for anybody to listen to. We talk business stuff here. We talk about things people need to know. So please like and subscribe. Enjoy it. Until next time, peace and blessings.
Hey, you stole that. Peace and blessings.